Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wind Down Friday in this new episode. Today, our guest is Reza Kazerounian, President and Co-Founder of Alif Semiconductor. Hi, Reza. Welcome aboard. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Thank you for your time. Where are you located, Reza?
I'm in Bay Area, in Silicon Valley area, yes.
Good, nice place. So, Reza, I have prepared a couple of questions to share with you. So, you have had a remarkable career across several semiconductor companies. Just to mention some companies, STMicroelectronics, for example, Freescale, Atmel, and now, so you are president of Alif Semiconductor. And you have also worked in different roles in terms of senior vice president and general manager of the microcontroller and connectivity business unit at Atmel, for example. Looking back, Reza, what key experiences shaped your leadership style the most? Tell us more about you.
So I have been in the semiconductor industry all my life
Mhm.
in different type of positions. I started my career right after graduating from University of California at Berkeley with a PhD in
Yeah.
electrical engineering and semiconductor physics. And and right after graduation, I started working in a startup company, which was a bit unusual for people who actually go through that type of program at school. Usually, most of my peers or student peers wanting to join research institutes where they could do a lot of research, etc. And I kind of jumped into the opposite side of the spectrum, and I started working at a startup company. It was a very small company when I joined. There was, not that many people there. I was there for several years before the company was eventually acquired by STMicroelectronics. That was one of the best experiences I've had in my life from a work experience point of view, mainly because I was all of a sudden in an environment that I had to create something out of nothing. Startup companies by nature have to come to the market, have to be better, faster, and more innovative than their bigger peers in the marketplace. And to do that, you have to go way beyond a
Mhm.
normal type of work. Yeah, you have to almost do everything. I mean, I did more than a typical engineer would do. I was in the experience of creating something from nothing,
Mhm.
trying to create value, try to do it faster and better and to create a differentiation, kind of builds character so that in many ways formed my character and my personality and shaped the way that I kind of conducted myself for the rest of my career.
So, at Freescale, you, from your biography, were running a 2 billion, I guess, dollar business. So please correct me if I'm wrong. So represent
More or less.
more or less more than 65% of corporate revenue. So what were the biggest leadership lessons from managing at that scale some of this value?
So Freescale, honestly, was a wonderful company, very strong in many areas. Definitely, Freescale was very strong in the automotive area. Actually, Freescale's business at the time, I think, was the number one automotive business in that space. Um, with a lot of very credible customers, very smart people, very good engineers. So that overall was a great experience for me. But one particular event actually was something that I always remember. I think in 2011, there was that big earthquake that affected the Fukushima area in Japan. Freescale at the time had a fabrication facility where we produced some of our products, which was going mostly into automotive out of that area.
Yep.
That facility was pretty much wiped out by the effect of the tsunami and the earthquake, became completely non-operational. That event created a supply chain issue for our customer base, which were mostly automotive. And I came to really appreciate how one fab, one company can have such an influence on a supply chain across a market which is formed of many different companies making their own automotive parts and etc. And to recover from that natural disaster, what we had to do
Mm.
for months to gear up, to move products, to manage the supply chain, to handle parts, to ship parts, was a fantastic experience that really taught me the importance of dealing with customers, the importance of creating an environment where your customers and your partners could rely and trust you that you can actually come through when things are getting really tough. Uh, when disaster happens, the only thing you can think about is how to recover. That is really what I learned.
So another company, Atmel, for example, you oversaw the microcontroller connectivity business during transformative time in the industry. Talking about this period, so what do you see as the biggest innovation that you helped drive there?
I think in Atmel, so Atmel again was a wonderful company, had done actually historically had done a great job developing their what I call
Mm.
flow of microcontroller products. Atmel was really good on its own proprietary architecture, was called AVR at the time. Uh, Very strong in the 8-bit market, not as strong in the 32-bit market at the time. And what I thought needed to be done, because the market really grows on the 32-bit. I mean, the 8-bit market is more of a stable, sometimes shrinking market, uh, was to actually move Atmel from more of a proprietary architecture more towards an open architecture, and to make its 32-bit product line more of a streamlined product line, which could be adopted much easier by the worldwide user base.
Mm.
And when you make moves like this, it takes time. It's not like a matter of 1 year that you just make a decision and it's gone. Then you have to put a lot of energy, create a lot of new products running on a new architecture, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really what I was very busy with while I was an Atwell.
So you have worked in terms of across microcontroller connectivity and connectivity. You can say a lot, of course, MEMS, analog, and so on. So and now we are seeing also a big progress in terms of IoT with the advent of different technologies, related ones, AI as well. How do you see these technologies? That we mentioned evolving together in this era in terms of IoT, industrial IoT, AI, and related ones.
Yeah, because an interesting question because the word IoT has been around for a long time, correct? I mean the market it's again the semiconductor market has been talking about IoT, which by definition to me means any device that gets eventually connected to the cloud, any device at the edge or the endpoint that gets connected to the cloud. If you look at the facts, I was statistically speaking, over 50 billion units are supposed to be part of this IoT network once we cross 2030, if not more. That's a lot of units, correct? Most of these units, one way or the other, interact with sensors in the environment. Some are connected to image sensors like cameras or security cameras. Some are connected to voice-related devices. Some are connected to devices that sense human kind of body signals or motions or mm, in the infrastructure, monitor cities, vibrations, etc., gases. A lot of, statistically speaking, over 80% of the data which is collected by these devices in the endpoint gets wasted because the system doesn't know what to do with it,
Mm,
correct?
mm.
Because it's not possible to actually communicate constantly to the cloud and pass constant information coming from the devices which are operated at the endpoint or the edge. So to me, the biggest change that we will see is to bring the ability of local capability, local processing, and etc. to the endpoint devices to be able to actually collect, manipulate, use that to make decisions, use that to basically decide eventually when to talk to the cloud to have a much more effective, minimized amount of communication back and forth to the cloud with low latency. The essence of all of this is AI, in my opinion. AI is becoming a huge driver of not only the big AI and the servers, data servers to the form of ChatGPT or Llama, et cetera, that you're used to. AI in the sense of being able to make those devices running at the endpoint smart enough to be able to actually manage the information they collect and make decisions based on that. And that is going to be the biggest change that we will see going forward, in my opinion.
Let's talk about Alif Semiconductor. So you are president and co-founder. Your company is working, pioneering in ultra-low power microcontroller, AI-enabled, secure, and ultra-low power microcontrollers, and also fusion processors. So, what was the founding vision behind behind Alif Semiconductor? In particular, what gap did you want to fill in the industry?
Mhm.
What issues, what features you think to solve with your company, your technology?
So whenever I think about a startup company, correct, the first thing which comes to my mind is always this: what are you trying to do and what are you trying to solve? Okay, you can't just start a startup company without a very clear idea of what you're trying to solve. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of your own time and investors' money doing so, correct? So when the idea of starting a new company was going kind of through my head was, as a company, I wanted to not make the same devices, the same type of devices that were needed yesterday or being made today in the marketplace. The goal was, okay, what would the market needs? What technology trends would there be? And what would the market needs 5, 10 years out? So Aleph was officially founded in February of 2019. You can imagine that, we're working on a business plan in 2018. So the idea was, okay, if you look at 2028, you know, 5, 10 years out, what would the market need and what are the gaps in the marketplace? So that is that's the most important thing to actually figure out. So so the idea of Aleph was based on that type of philosophy to create a next generation of embedded devices, controllers, and processors, which can kind of close the gap and go beyond that of what the existing families in the marketplace were delivering. That was the principal idea. AI became an important part of that. I mean, if you go back actually 2018, 2019, nobody was really talking about AI. I mean, today, in the last 2, 3 years, the edge AI has become a very popular term. But 2018, it was not a hot topic. AI was existing, but it wasn't anything like what it is today in terms of the market demand, the focus of the market, the amount of investment which is going to it, correct? So AI became an important part of what we wanted to do. We said, okay, we want to create a next generation of devices which are also AI enabled that can actually smoothly run AI workload at the edge on a battery in a very small footprint and yet very capable compute engine. So that became the principal idea of creating that next generation of those devices. We were actually the first company that launched in 2021 its family, what we call a scalable family of embedded controllers and processors with embedded NPUs as part of a standard family of MCUs and stuff, very capable. Today, it is all of a sudden has become a very hot topic, and many companies trying to do that. But what we started 6 years ago was unique at the time. And with the same token, now we're thinking about what the market would need 5, 10 years from now. And now we already focus on creating that so we can deliver it 3 years from now in the marketplace. So these were the principal ideas behind starting Aleph.
Thank you. Thank you. So you have held senior leadership roles in Europe, USA, and so you did cover global markets. So my next question is, how has working across different cultures influenced, in particular, your work, your approach to manage, to innovation and management? So globalization, talking, traveling, Europe, USA, Asia. So what about the differences in terms of culture and how this did influence you?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I mean, naturally, I don't want to claim that I have a good understanding of different cultures and work habits across the globe as an expert. So I just have my own personal experience, correct? Definitely, there's a very big difference sometimes between, I mean, if I look at some of the work habits and cultures in different places in Europe versus different places in US versus different places in India or Asia, definitely there are differences. But there's also a very interesting common factor that all employees across, no matter where they're located, they usually share, which is I think is a human thing, actually, a human character, and that is goal. Everyone, regardless of their position, age, nationality, or the location of work, we all, one way or the other, want to believe in something that becomes our goal.
Yeah.
And that is, to me, the most interesting fact. You have to bring people that you work with to your realization that there is this goal and make everybody to believe in that goal. And once they believe in that goal, then all of a sudden you go beyond the boundaries of work habits or cultures or countries, because the idea to thrive and to reach that goal becomes more important than anybody beside their work habits. In some words, maybe it's called motivation or whatever, but you have to create that common goal. Once that common goal is created, all of a sudden everybody becomes the same.
Thank you. Good. So, in conclusion, I have other two questions. So, one, talking about young engineers, young professionals, entrepreneurs entering in the industry today, for example. So, what advice would you give to them? Would you give to these people to help in such this fast changing space field?
Mm. So this is interesting. I think regardless of the times that we live in, so today the times are a little bit different, correct? Um, Technology is different. The
Mm.
expectation of what will happen 20 years from now is different than what we expected will happen 20 years ago, correct? Um, Actually, in fact, I mean, if you go back to 20 or 30 years ago in semiconductor industry, some of the most relevant, powerful semiconductor companies 20, 30 years ago are no longer relevant, as strong as they used to be. Some of them don't even exist. And if you look at the leading companies in semiconductor industry, the majority of them are actually new. They were just born 20, 30 years ago. So this is the industry that we live in. Technology industry moves and moves really fast, and it is very demanding, correct? So along that line, my advice to incoming engineers or young talent to this industry is do what your heart wants you to do. Don't take a job if you don't have a passion for it. Don't take a job just for the sake of a salary. I understand, income and salary is an important part of our lives you have to live on, but do whatever your passion is. Follow
Mm.
your passion and be attached to what you do. That is the best chance of success, and that's the best way to build your careers. Without a passion and without a desire to excel in what you do, it is almost impossible to succeed.
I agree. Nice point. So, like a last question, relax question, Reza. So, if you could share a glass of wine, we are at Wine Down Friday, with anyone from history or technologist, so who would it be? Why? So,
That is a very interesting question.
from history, from technology, from personal point of view, wait to know.
Yeah, no, that is a very interesting question. I think um, I would probably say it would be somebody like Edison,
Mm-hmm.
mainly because the idea of using electricity and the idea of bringing, a source of light.
Yeah,
I mean, our entire life is changed. Today, it seems so simple. Oh,
yeah.
of course,
But
electricity price store, blah, blah, blah. But the idea of creating something like that is, to me, is so massively big that kind of makes me believe, okay, I would be so curious to know, to understand what went through his mind as he was working in this type of technologies at the time that pretty much changed human lives in so many ways. I mean, to me, that is like, oh. This is fascinating. The same way, I'm also fascinated by Wilbur Wright brothers. I mean, every time I fly quite often. I sit down in this massive plane which is carrying two, three, 400 passengers, and flying 35,000 feet above the air, and how many of them are actually flying. And to me, is always, while I understand the dynamics of the aerodynamics and the traction and how the plane takes off, but what an amazing concept that they had in mind to actually create a flying machine when they did. So it takes quite a very curious mind, very dedicated personality, and somebody who's just thinking way outside the box. So I always love to be able to have a glass of wine with people who actually always think out of the box and create something that just wasn't even, you know, imaginable 5 years before that. So
Good, very nice. Thanks a lot for sharing your thought. Thank you, Reza. It has been a pleasure talking with you. Thanks for sharing. I wish you a great weekend and stay in touch with your next news updates from Alif Semiconductor. Thank you, Reza.
thank you so much. It was a pleasure.